I first noticed her almost extraordinary perfect disposition when she moved in. Sarah was just 16, nice and quiet, with bright eyes and a shy smile. My mother had hired her to help around the house, to clean and do the laundry. She seemed like a nice girl, always polite, always on time. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. At least, not during the day. But then the night came. And as usual, we all went to sleep, Sarah inclusive, not knowing what sinister and horrific occurrence that occupied the night while we slept, until one particular night. One evening, I stayed up late studying for an exam. The house was quiet, and my parents asleep. After a while of my study, I felt thirsty and I headed for the dining just by the kitchen where the fridge was. As I walked past the kitchen, I heard something. A strange shuffling noise. Curious, I peeked through the crack in the door. My heart stopped. Standing by the kitchen sink wasn't Sarah, or at least, not the Sarah I knew. The person there was hunched over, with long, twisted fingers. Her hair, once smooth and black, was now thin and gray. Her face was wrinkled, deep lines cutting across her skin like the bark of an old tree. It was an old woman. An impossibly old woman. I froze, unable to breathe, as the woman turned slightly. The eyes, those bright eyes, were the same as Sarah's. I backed away, too scared to make a sound. What was happening? Was I dreaming? I rushed back to my room, shut the door, jumped on my bed, and covered myself with my lying clothes, scared to my bones, trying but unable to sleep. I must have been like that for hours, until out of weakness I had eventually fallen into sleep. The next morning, I woke early, desperate to see if what I saw was real. I found Sarah sweeping the living room, looking just as young and innocent as ever. There was no trace of the old woman from last night. I told myself it was a nightmare. But the next night, fear and curiosity kept me up late and I saw her again. This time, she was in the hallway, dragging her feet across the floor. Her back was bent, her movement slow and painful. She didn't seem to notice me watching, but I could hear her breathing, raspy and deep, like she was struggling for air. For days, I kept seeing her at night, transforming into that old woman once the sun went down. I wanted to tell my parents, but what would they say? Who would believe me? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, I stayed awake, hiding in the shadows, determined to find out the truth. As the clock struck midnight, I saw it happen. Right before my eyes, Sarah began to change. Her skin sagged, her hair turned white, and her bones seemed to crack as she aged by decades in a matter of seconds. I gasped, unable to contain my fear. The old woman's head snapped toward me, her bright eyes locking onto mine. "You shouldn't have seen this," she whispered, her voice low and chilling. "Now, you know my secret." I stumbled backward, trying to get away, but she moved faster than I expected, reaching out with her gnarled hand. "You see, I'm not just your house help," she said, her grip tightening on my arm. "I've been here for a long, long time, waiting." "Waiting for what?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "For the right moment," she replied, her eyes gleaming with something dark and terrible. "And now, it's too late." With those words, everything went black. When I woke up the next morning, Sarah was gone. My parents said she had left suddenly, without a word. They didn't seem to notice anything strange. But I knew the truth. Sarah, no, the old woman, wasn't gone. She was out there, somewhere. Watching. Waiting. And I knew, deep down, that she would return one day. Years passed, but the memory of Sarah, the old woman, never left me. I tried to forget, but some nights, I would wake up in a cold sweat, the sound of her raspy breath echoing in my mind. The strange thing was, no one else remembered her. My parents didn't bring her up again. It was as if she had never existed. But I knew better. Life moved on. I graduated, moved away, and tried to start fresh in a new city. But even in the busy streets, in the noise of my new life, I could feel her presence lurking in the back of my mind. Every shadow in a dark room, every flicker of movement in the corner of my eye reminded me of her. It had been 12 years since that night when I first saw her change. I thought maybe I had escaped her, that whatever dark plan she had was unfinished. But then it began again. One night, I came home late after work. My apartment was small but cozy. I liked its stillness, its quietness. But that night, something felt off. The air was thick, the temperature strangely cold, and the shadows seemed to cling to the walls in ways they shouldn't. I walked into my bedroom, setting down my keys. That's when I heard it, a soft, familiar shuffling sound. My heart sank. I turned around slowly, my chest tightening with fear. She was there. Sarah, or the thing that had once been her, stood in the corner of my room. But she was no longer a frail old woman. Now, she was something worse. Her skin hung loosely from her bones, and her fingers had grown longer, twisted like gnarled roots. Her once bright eyes were now dark, black pits that seemed to suck the light out of the room. "I've come back," she said, her voice crawling under my skin like nails on a chalkboard. "Why?" I whispered, my throat dry. "What do you want?" She smiled, revealing a mouth full of rotten teeth. "I told you years ago. I've been waiting." "For what?" I asked, stepping back, though I knew it was useless. "For you," she hissed. "You've known my secret. Now, it's time to finish what I started." Before I could react, she was on me. Her cold, bony hands gripped my arms, her nails digging deep into my skin. I struggled, but it was like fighting a nightmare. No matter how hard I pushed, she only seemed to grow stronger. "I was once young, like you," she whispered into my ear. "But time catches up with everyone, unless you learn to take it from others." Her hands moved to my face, her fingers tracing the lines of my skin. I could feel it then, my energy, my youth, draining away. My limbs grew heavy, my vision blurred. "No!" I screamed, fighting with everything I had. But it was too late. My body grew weaker as she pulled the life from me, her twisted form becoming younger, more vibrant with each passing second. Then softly she said, "I must become what I see before me, and what my eyes see before me must become me." I could feel myself slipping away, the room growing darker, my breath slowing. But just as the last bit of strength left me, I remembered something. The mirror. Summoning all the energy I had left, I grabbed the small hand mirror from my dresser and held it up between us. Sarah's, no, the old woman's, eyes locked onto her own reflection. A deafening screech filled the room. Her body began to convulse violently, her hands letting go of me as she shrank away from the mirror. The reflection showed her true form, the hideous, withered creature she had become. She let out one final, terrible scream, her body collapsing into a pile of dust and brittle bones before my eyes. The room fell silent. I dropped the mirror, gasping for breath. My strength slowly returned, though I could feel the weight of what had just happened in every inch of my body. I had barely survived. I stared at the pile of dust on the floor, unsure if it was truly over. But there was no movement, no sign of her. I packed up my things the next morning and left that apartment for good. But deep down, I knew the truth. You can escape the place. You can run from the memory. But some secrets never die. They just wait.
Thanks for watching. Please encourage me by hitting the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to smash that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I drop something new. It will also be nice to hear from you on the comment section of this channel.